Yes. Where the God man them there? Man a man, single man, married man, faithful man. Where them there? Man a man from Morn Point in the Grill. Welcome to the program designed for men with guests who are men hosted by men. This is where we challenge, encourage, and empower our men to become all that they were created to become. So this is the mailbox here every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. right here in Love 101, the family station. The mailbox is now sponsored by Rich Company Limited. Big up to the Rich crew. Thank you so much for believing in the man them. I am your regular host, Kevin Bailey, and my co-host, Courtney Morrison, right here in the place. How you doing, Courtney?
I'm good. Good afternoon, Kevin. Good afternoon, Jamaica. Good afternoon to all those listening in on Love 101 and those viewing us by our YouTube page and Facebook page. We today want to talk about staying faithful in your marriage. And it isn't an easy thing to do, especially in a society that places little value in it. Faithfulness itself is not a popular concept in today's version of marriage. After all, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Vows have been changed too. They have gone from being as long as you both shall live to as long as you both can stand each other. Hmm?
Mhm.
Faithfulness is definitely not an easy path, but indeed it can. How can we make the years count and not just count the years?
Ah,
Is the big question as this work. Marriage can be bliss, yet blisters can be caused, but you can heal. We want to explore all of that today, right here on the mailbox. Kev, what was the weekend? What go on?
lots of stuff in the weekend. Had a chance to speak in Carmel Gospel Assembly. And
Yes.
big up to the man them there and the ladies them, of course. Big supporters of the mailbox. And yeah, so give thanks. Always things to do in the kingdom, right? How was yours?
Well, it has been a busy weekend. Planning a 40th reunion anniversary for the graduating class of 1982. I still can't believe it's 40 years since I graduated from Kingston College.
Wow.
I met some ardent supporters of the mailbox today at Kingston Graphic Printers right there in Crossroads. Entered the place. We're trying to do a program, and the lady, Miss Stanley, says, I know your voice. You come on the man thing, don't it? And Kevin, I'm one of those who didn't know I had a distinct voice, much less someone just recognizing me from my voice. So shout out to Lady Stanley and Mr. Roach. Indeed, you are doing well. And, I'm reminded, Mr. Jackson, Kevin, always have to big up the man them when the mother something for the man them. Mr. Jackson from Ascot Primary, tomorrow, Thursday at 5:15, he's having an all-male PTA talk. And he has asked me to do the presentation to them. He's really
Wow.
hoping to get somebody to come and do some little coverage. But indeed, anything for the men. That article I sent you about the men in Halfway Tree, and you know, it is good. We're changing the narrative on
Yeah.
things.
Gentlemen of Kingston. That's it. That was really
Yes, yes.
empowering. And it's just a small number of men and women who are troublemakers or have gone the wrong way. But the majority of us doing our very best to be productive and fruitful as well. So last week we looked on things men need to know before marriage, about marriage. Today we're going to be looking at after the wedding, how to stay married faithfully, because many are still married but not faithful. We want to highlight some basic things: personal grooming, care, and attire, principles, habits, and characters a man must have in order to stay married faithfully, things to do, things to avoid doing. What about dealing with family, in laws, and how to set effective boundaries, friendship boundaries with the opposite sex, and much more, Courtney.
Who knows? We may not only have to talk about the opposite sex as well. So back with us again this week is Paul Smith. He's a counseling psychologist at New Life Counseling and Psychotherapy Services. He's also a Justice of the Peace marriage officer as well, founder and one of the directors of Love and Restoration Ministries, uh, acronym LARM. He's husband to one wife for the past 22 years. Big up to you, Sir Paul. He's an associate counseling psychologist at Family Life Ministries and Choose Life International. So he's associated with both Kevin Bailey and Dr. Donovan Thomas. Wonderful stuff.
Yep. So welcome, Sir Paul. Great to have you again with us. It's
Great to
really
be on.
wonderful, and I want the man them to know from one point in the grill. Here he is, Brother Paul Smith. Welcome again to the mailbox.
It is so great to be on. Good evening, gentlemen. Let me say good evening to the listening audience and those who are also viewing on Facebook and YouTube. It's so awesome to be on. And big up to the man them who listening right now.
Yes, Sir Paul, it's great having you again. And so I know it will be an interesting time listening in today. But man and man, we want you to remember, we need to hear from you definitely. As Paul said, we're live on Facebook and YouTube at Love 101 FM Jamaica. You can leave your comments via our WhatsApp line at 876-997-3125. Women on the nose, so we're loving, all right? Loving a holy, loving a good, not just bad, good, right? And we welcome your participation in the program by leaving us a message via WhatsApp or comment on our Facebook page. Females, remember, no calls or voice notes allowed. So remember, you can leave your comments on our Facebook page and in our WhatsApp line. So you have participation there. Not true, guys?
Yep. So, is a real man a faithful husband? How can a man remain faithful to his wife in this social landscape? So much pressures, so much distractions and attractions. What are some boundaries he must implement with female friends, especially those who has feelings for him? What does a faithful married man look like? Today we have some questions and we're gonna seek some answers. But before we go further, you know we have to shout out on the man them, right, Tony? So we
Straight.
have to just
STR8. After three, two, three. Monday!
yeah,
Straight.
man in the place.
And just before we head into our main discussion, it's now time for us to get into a segment that we dub draft. And I say it means direct response for the featured theme. And what we want to do is find a little bit about from our guest today, you know, what is he about and what is he like and why should a man be faithful in his marriage? Who takes the glory for his faithfulness? After 22 years of marriage, would you say it's because of your faithfulness? And why wouldn't a man stay faithful? So let's address the first one. Why should a man be faithful in his marriage? Who takes the glory for his faithfulness? Sir Paul.
All right. So I'm happy that you went ahead and you created the context of what exists today. You know, the temptation to be out there and to not be faithful, and I see faithful with commitment, and it does not mean that the man won't see more attractive women, hmm right? Just as how he sees more attractive cars. But then you make a commitment to stay, to stick with the woman that you fall in love with, the woman that you have chosen to stay with. So for me, it's faithfulness, it is connecting to God, both of us connecting to God and asking God to just help us through because it's not easy. And it's a daily commitment that I make that today I am still choosing to be faithful. I'm still choosing to be committed. I am still choosing to remain true to my wife. It's a choice. So every day I get up, it's a daily renewal for me, a daily renewal of the mind, the thoughts, the emotions, right? And it goes beyond how you feel because there are times you might get up and you just feel that butterfly. You don't feel the bee stinging, right? But you know that you have a commitment to make, and it goes just beyond emotions.
Mm.
So
We're going to
for
get a
me,
little bit more into that a little later as to these commitments and how does he remain faithful? Does he get tired? What can make him get tired? We want to ask some of those questions a little later. We just want to touch the tip of the iceberg and then we get to that large portion a little later. Why wouldn't a man stay faithful without getting into the details? Give us some idea.
why would a man stay faithful?
Mm-hmm.
Pressure,
Mm.
pressure. Trying to conform to the quote unquote popular culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to win approval, of his
Mm.
friends who might not want to remain faithful, but yet he struggles to remain in those kind of friendship. And because he remains in that friendship, he seeks for approval from his friends. And so, in order to get the rating and the likes and the approval, there are times that he will want to say, hey, the one burner thing not gonna work, right? So he goes and he finds another burner, right? And then he identifies himself with his group that has so much influence on him, right? Um, the other thing is that probably he might have gotten married for the wrong reason. I think I touched on that last week. Might have gotten married for the wrong reason, and having been exposed to marriage, you might realize that hey, this is not for me, right? And that's why last week I said that person ought not to enter into it ill-advisedly, right? So he might just realize that well, the marriage thing is just not for me, right? When the mask comes off and the true person is revealed, there might be a little culture shock, emotional shock, right? And so these things will happen. But by and large, there are persons who might just be among peers, and the peers they have a particular culture, a particular value system, and he's forced to comply to that which the friends expect of him and choose not to be faithful.
It's a pressure
All right.
bus vibe. So
Pressure must fight.
pressure bus vibe.
Definitely.
What about the older men? Is there a sense of trying to prove anything at that stage? Uh, would that because a friend of mine says that you can't talk about faithfulness until you die because unfaithfulness just takes one error in choice. Talk to me. What about the
Mm-hmm.
older men? Those who are like
Mm-hmm.
yourself, 22, and Kevin who gone 32, you know? What about
Yes.
that? What would be the temptations in those later years for a man?
All right. Now the temptations are really not because you have women out there who have said to men who are married that hey, married men are responsible, right? They are responsible. They have been
Mm.
there. They have done that. They are securing themselves. And so, for some women out there, notice I said some, the ring does not deter them, right? And there are times too when marriages might break down, and the man, for example, might have unmet needs. They need to be admired, they need to be respected, to be valued. And if that is an unmet need in his relationship, when he goes to work or when he's on the street and he's admired and he's respected, there is a tendency to gravitate to that which is missing from the relationship. And I might dare to say that, infidelity or unfaithfulness, it starts emotionally. So it starts with, affiliation, closeness. So there are persons who might not have gone out of the marriage to physically, connect with someone else, but emotionally there's a tie, right? There's a connection. There's a bond with someone other than your partner. And that is where it starts most times, right? So out of unmet needs, some men gravitate towards, the admiration at work, and they gravitate towards that. It sounds like music to the ear. They say that I don't get these compliments in my
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And so the unmet needs sometimes drive them, right?
Yeah.
But older men are tempted to, right? Older men are tempted, but I'm saying that as long as you are grounded with your commitment and you say, no, I am not going to be disloyal. I am not going to hurt my wife. If I hurt my wife, I hurt myself. I made a pledge to God. I made a pledge to my wife. I'm going to be loyal. And it is something you have to keep telling yourself. So there has got to be some self talk, right? Every day you get
Mm.
up, there must be some self talk. I am married to one wife. I love my wife. I love my family. I'm going to stay commitment. You have to practice self talk because the mind must be renewed.
Very, very important words from Paul Smith there. Just want to remind our listeners that we're live on Facebook and YouTube at Love 101 FM Jamaica. You can leave your comments via our WhatsApp line 876-997-3125. In keeping with the festivities of the season, we're going to be talking about after the wedding, how to stay married faithfully. This is what we have been having the conversation about. This is June 8th, 2022. Can you imagine that? And we're still going here on the mailbox.
It's really interesting times, and we're going to get a little deeper into all that we've just spoken to. And we have as our guest again. I almost said Dr. Paul Smith, but I'm preempting a number of things. Sir Paul Smith
It's
with
coming.
us.
It's coming.
Without question. We can tell. We can
Yeah.
tell. You know. we really want to talk about this faithfulness issue. You spoke about emotional faithfulness, and that's where it tends to begin. It is a choice as well to remain faithful. We want to find out as we get deeper into this segment, as we call it, the inbox. We want to look at some of these issues in a deeper sense. What could cause some of the breakdown in communications? That they say communication is the lifeblood of any relationship. We want to talk about that. But Kevin, tell us about faithfulness a bit before we go any further now.
Sure. So faithfulness is also an uphill battle because current media trashes marriages too. TV shows, movies, and more portray the commonness of hooking up outside the marriage and then the subsequent necessary breaking up of the marriage. There seems to be a fad of cohabiting or friends with benefit, and it's amazing the how we manage our sexuality. Somebody says sex is overrated but totally undervalued. And how do
Mm.
we navigate? People ask, for instance, why is it that Solomon and David and these people are allowed with women, and uh, and we can't have more than one? And men say, Brother Paul, that it is unnatural, man, for one man to just stick with one woman. Why not work out a system, where some of the singles too were able to meet their needs in a controlled way? So, how do we deal with these things? And is it natural? Is it normal, Paul Smith, for a man to be committed to one woman? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. As much as the commitment is natural, so is the temptation, right? So it's the temptation. Yes, but as I said before, it's natural. It has been working for a lot of men. It has worked for me. It has worked for a number of men that being committed it comes naturally once you know that you are not influenced, as you mentioned, by the so-called popular culture, by the movies, by what is out there, the songs that perpetuate infidelity and unfaithfulness. A man has got to know, what he stands for and what he stands on, right? And every time he looks at his partner, right? I look at my partner and I say, yes, I am happy in my relationship. My life is happier, my life is more wholesome, right? And I give God thanks for my partner, And I see many men go out of relationships at times, and the person who causes the infidelity to happen, after the family is smashed, after the family is destroyed, that person is no more. That person is no more, right? And so I look at just not my relationship, I look at my family, right? And I say I don't want to hurt my partner. I don't want to destroy my family that I spend years building and work hard to get my children. I must set the right example for them, right? So respect for oneself, respect for one's partner, respect for one's family becomes important in the dynamics, right? But you just need to know, because I am not easily influenced. Whilst I believe that something is the way to go, I mean somebody has to come real good to kind of reverse that decision. I believe that one wife is enough. I believe that you can make it happen, and that which you're looking for outside can be had in your relationship. It takes work, right? Sometimes it might be curry chicken, sometimes it might be brown stew, sometimes it might be big. So the variety that one is looking for can be found, can be had in that relationship. If the effort, the time, the commitment, if all of those are put in it, it can work, it will work, and it is working.
Marital faithfulness is often mocked. Affairs are
Yes,
seen as unavoidable and understandable,
yes,
seem to be accepted. Loyalty is almost
yeah.
seen as naive.
Mm.
How do
Mm-hmm.
we help in changing that culture?
Mm.
That
You, you,
men,
you know you know what?
most I just had a discussion with
Yeah,
a
go
man who
ahead.
tell me that men were never created to be monogamous.
I've heard that already. I've heard it many times. Yeah, I've heard it many times. But I think that we need to showcase men who have been married and have been faithful and have found peace, happiness, and joy. We need to showcase, we need to highlight, we need to put them out there, right? Because the tendency is that marriage is not working. The tendency is that once I get married, then my partner is going to change. Once I get married, then I'm going to be living a boring life, right? And there are actually men out there who can be modeled, who you can showcase, say, hey, I've been married for 22 years, and these are the things that are working for me. And I can tell men out there that I have never been happier, right? I am quite happy. I look forward to coming home in the evening and just to meet my wife and to meet my family. It makes me feel secure, emotionally secure. I feel that way the commitment is there. The more commitment there is, the more the love grows, the more the appreciation grows, right? And so if you nurture the plant will grow. And I say to men, nurture your relationship, nurture your marriage, pour into the life of your partner, pour into the life of your family. And the more you pour, is the more that thing will be poured into you as well, right? So it's in giving that you receive. Give of yourself, give of your commitment, right? It can work. And honestly, when one strays, you realize that, hey, it's not worth it. And many persons have gone that route to try to be unfaithful. And in hindsight, they look at it, it was not worth it at all. It was just not worth it,
So,
right? Because home
so,
is where the commitment is, home is where the love is, home is where the appreciation is, home is where the heart is, right? So I encourage men to
totally true.
pour, yes, to nourish, to work on it. It's
Yeah, Sir
workable,
Paul,
it's working,
what you're
it's
saying
doable.
is certainly true, and we have seen the devastating consequences of extramarital affairs.
Yeah,
The deception, the hurt, the pain that has really damaged not only the people involved but children and family members. Tell us though, with
children.
men being attracted. You go to the workplace, you're a church. and you see other females who something may happen inside of you, you know, you find them attractive, you admire them, and they admire you. How do you put in boundaries? What do you do in order for it not to cross over into a different place? Is it that you have to bind the enemy and speak in tongues and turn and run? No, no. What practically do we need to do, Brother Paul, so that we protect our marriage?
Yes, so separate apart from binding the enemy and speaking in tongues, there are some pragmatic things that ought to be done, and I suggest that there ought to be clearly defined boundaries, right? Clearly defined boundaries. But first of all, you need to buy into the boundaries and why the boundaries are important, right? You need to buy into that first and foremost for it to happen, right? But as a married man, I need to say to persons, hey, you can't call me at a particular time. We can't talk about certain things, right? Our relationship is totally platonic, and these are the boundaries. You have to say to the person, I am committed. People need to see by your action and your words that you are committed, right? And so once you realize that the boundary is being crossed and you communicate that, it's not worth it if the person is willing to continue with that. There's no other relationship that should be as important that you can't cut it off to save your marriage, right? And there are persons who try to put their hand in the dog mouth each time to see if they'll be bitten, right? And there are times when certain relationships are not worth it. You see the direction that it is going. You have to also be cognizant of your own vulnerability, right? And say because of these, you can see the signal, you can see the writing on the wall many times, and we try to play the role of being naive. But clear boundaries must be set. You have to be self-aware. You have to know your vulnerabilities. You have to know your weaknesses. You have to know what the unmet needs are and why there is a need to get it elsewhere. The self-awareness becomes so important. But you need to make sure that you're even honest with your partner, right? And accountability is important. And an incident, I was talking to two men the other day, and they were saying that, boy, a woman will come in and say, somebody admired me today at work. And it's expected that the man should say, okay, okay. But the gentleman said the other way around, if you say a woman admired me today at work, the story would not end, right? But there has got to be open communication, But they come in to say, no, certain boundaries I must keep. Boundaries with in-laws as well becomes important. Boundaries at work, right? Boundaries where time phone calls from external persons must be cut off because it's no time spent with my family, with my wife. All of those. So it must be clearly defined and it must be communicated. But I'm saying that the person needs to believe in the importance of setting the boundaries. That becomes important.
We want to come back to you as we're about to go for a break. We want to talk about you spoke about buying into the concept. Are we doing enough premarital counseling? Are persons open to that enough to buy into the concept? How are we re-educating our men and society at large when it comes on to marriage? Should some of our men even enter marriage? Are they ready for it? We want to look at some of those when we get back. But we're going to take a break and we're going to come right back at you. You're listening to the mailbox right here on Love 101, the family station. Come right back.
When you say phosphorus, you say electrical. SWA cables, conduits, transformers, and breakers. When you say phosphorus, you say lighting, chandeliers, and more. When you say phosphorus, you say LEDs and solar water heaters. Phosphorus is electrical, lighting, solar, and LEDs. Visit us today, Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. Phosphorus.
And Digicel wins again, out in front with another consecutive Ookla Award for the fastest speeds. The champion network crosses the finish line first by providing the best mobile coverage, best mobile network, and fastest home internet Jamaica has seen in 60 years. There's just no beating Digicel.
Join Digicel for Jamaica's best mobile coverage, best mobile network, and fastest home internet you can always rely on. Digicel, made in Jamaica. For more info on Ookla, visit digiceljamaica.com.
Renovators, homeowners, contractors, fixer-uppers, do-it-yourselfers. It's a construction reduction at the Home and Things Pro Savings Sales event. Warning! The prices are dangerously low. Get the lowest prices on tiles, bathroom fixtures and faucets, windows and doors, and so much more, including new arrivals. So shop now for everything you need for your project. It's the Pro Savings Sales event happening now at Home and Things. Don't detour. Come down to Home and Things, Old Loop Road and Concern Spring Road.
Grace Mackerel, you're my number one. Like, love you, yeah. Time by Grace Mackerel is.
It's 6:02 right here on the Mailbox, live on Love 101. Welcome back. You're listening to the program, The Mailbox. We have with us our host, Paul Smith. Today, we're talking about how to stay married faithfully after the wedding. What happens? How do we make that count? How do we not only count the years, but make the years count? And we want to ensure we speak about this. As we left, we were hearing Paul telling us that indeed buy into the concept of boundaries, buy into the concept of fidelity. How can we make that work? Kev, how can we make these things work?
Yes, very important conversation. The reality is that if we have great marriages, the research says persons in great marriages, they are healthier, happier, and happier, and in a better financial position as well. So there are so many benefits when we're committed to each other and set the tone for families. A great family where children feel secure, they feel protected, they feel a sense of belonging, and develop good self-esteem, or they think and feel about themselves. And it changes society, it changes the Jamaica land we love, and we need to have more of that. But how do we really make this work with so many things going against us? The culture, the music, the movies, the magazines, the mindset of different people. And do women pressure us as well as married men? Paul Smith was saying that there are times that women feel attracted to Courtney Morrison because after all he's married and he's stable and he's a leader, and so he becomes attractive, right? And so sometimes intentionally or unintentionally, women may try to meet their unmet needs by gravitating towards us. Courtney, you're asking if we need to have conversations about premarital counseling or know that they are married, because they may have spent a lot of time planning for the wedding. So now, what do they do? Should we have yearly checkups on our marriages, Paul? Is couples ministry important? Should we put emphasis on these things? Is it that important to be focusing on building marriages, say in the church, in the society? What your thoughts are?
Extremely important. Extremely important. So even when you are married, of course, just as well, you go to the doctor, you get a checkup, you can go to a counselor as well, and nothing has to be wrong, right? For you to go to counseling, nothing has to be wrong, but you want to make sure that you have the right ingredients, and you can even evaluate between yourselves, So when I just got married, I used to call my wife very often. I would sit her down and say, after a week of marriage, what do you think? How are we?
Yes,
So that I when I
yes.
didn't do it, she actually missed it and reminded me that is how I started. So that evaluation is important. It could be done even at anniversary. You sit down and you talk. Where are we? where are we hoping to go, the church becomes important because the marriage ministry becomes important. So the church needs to have this as a part of the DNA to make sure that persons who are married, young couples, they stay married, they can grow, they know how to communicate, they know how to appreciate each other. The church has a tremendous role to play, but couples can also invest in their marriages, attend seminars, marriage seminars, webinars, retreats, those kind of things, where you get all the information. You're never perfect. You don't know it all. So there's always a need to hear other person's experiences, to see what other ingredients I can pour into it. So knowledge is power. But I say power is the use of knowledge. And the more you know, the more equipped that you are, is the better you're able to kind of fix that which is happening. So there must be constant investment. It's an investment that you make. And the more you invest, the more returns that you will get. Right? So that becomes very, very important. But I'm all for the churches, stepping up, a notch, and make sure that even, they have the ministries and they're active. Persons feel that they have a safe space, because sometimes the issue of trust, if I go into a group and I say this is not happening in my marriage, will I be judged? Will I be condemned? Will I be seen as less of a Christian? I am not so saved, right? So you're in an accountability group too. Accountability groups are important, So I should be free to say, yesterday I saw a young lady and I looked at her 5 times consecutively, and what you think, guys? What you think is happening? That kind of
That sound, if you
openness.
bring that up, you would be dead already, sir. Look at the lady 5 times.
Yes.
Are there really
So those are
safe
the
spaces
important.
for our men to give that sort of accountability? I love something that you also said before. Just as we do medical checkups, we should, getting evaluations. I think that would be a success thing for marriages. Not only should we wait till things become wrong, we end up at counseling. And so counseling becomes something that we don't do, because for us to go counseling, something gone wrong. And if anybody sees us going counseling, then it paints such a wrong picture in our minds that we avoid counseling.
Yeah, I
How
see.
again? Yes, Kev.
Yeah, I see. We have some comments on Facebook. Do we want to take some of those?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. There it is now. Jen Rose, God favors me. Brian Brown. Men are so unfaithful. Oh my gosh. If I could have turned back the hands of time, I would not think about marriage and man. Um, so sorry to hear that. eh? Rose Johnson Simmons says, thank God for Paul. He comes home every night. He is respectful. That's from
Oh my
someone special.
God.
That lady's name matches up with Mr. Smith's name, So that's an
That's my
awesome.
wife. Yes.
Big up, Paul. And
Rose
especially
Johnson Smith say, especially when they are sick, they run back home.
at home.
So
Doreen
big up
Ben,
Rose.
yes, big up, Rose. Doreen Ben says, Amen. Men like to give what they can't take. They are unfair. Men like to give what they can't take. They are unfair. Um, that's a conversation, Paul, and your take on it. A man will go out and be unfaithful and almost expect it to be just a normal response for the woman to take him back, forgive him almost immediately, and if there's a child, to take the child in, etc. But if the woman goes out and have an affair, it's a different thing. It's like there's no forgiveness at all. Um, just your
Yes.
perspective
Yes.
on that. Hmm.
That's the reality.
Hmm.
That's the reality. We men. as men, we are not as emotionally strong as we want to think we are, right? And it happens. It's a discussion that is ongoing. Yes, the man will go out and be unfaithful. Yes, and he will do his thing, and he expect the wife to take him in just the same. And if there's a child that is as a result of the unfaithfulness, yes, let's just move on. Sometimes they come to counseling, and they're not even are in tune with the emotions of the wife, how broken she is, how mistrustful and distrustful she has become. And sometimes the approach of the man is say, I am sorry, let's just move on. But when the shoe is on the other foot, and the wife is being unfaithful, no, he is crushed, right? He doesn't want to forgive. My friends are going to laugh at me. I don't think you are worthy to be touched anymore. So they are not, men are not good, right, at handling when they are deceived or when they get born, right? They don't deal very well with it across the spectrum, whether saved or unsaved or almost saved, across the spectrum. When they get it back, no, it's another thing, right? So I can probably look at the person and say it's unfair. Yes, it is, but it is something that we realize that is happening. Yeah.
There's a comment
And our
here.
egos are fragile.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Paul Smith. I know there are a number of men who have spoken with who wouldn't agree with you, but we're going to talk a bit more about that. We're looking at a comment that says, marriage is not for happiness, it is for pain and suffering. The woman feels the pain and the man suffer. That's a comment by one of our WhatsApp or social media persons who have logged on, that marriage is not for happiness. What a concept. Uh, Marriage is not for
Mm.
happiness. How does that work? The view that we have of marriage is walking into it. Again, I go back to the foundation. Is it that we are not educating persons enough about marriage, especially when it comes to our men? Because even as you spoke that story of the men wanting to just move on if they are at fault, but if the woman, they're up in their feelings, doesn't that also still show that the man is emotional? He's trying to say something else, as we saw, as you said, his ego is fragile, or he's pretending. It's one out of the two. But what do we think? Are we it's true. Most men tend to say they are not even sentimental, but it bears little
That's not
truth.
true. Yeah.
Yes. So is it that we have missed an age group? Our young men. I see a young lady and I want to big her up, Tanya Case, doing a program called Wife Material, training women to be wife. Do we need programs like that for our men? Husband material.
Yes. Oh, yes. We need that for men. Men need to be prepared for marriage, to know what marriage entails. But also in my kind of anecdotal study, because I just like to do some anecdotal research and find out what is happening. And I realized too that premarital counseling becomes very important. And even in my practice, when persons come to me for premarital counseling, there are times when they come and the date is set. The date of the wedding is set. The ring is coming from Afghanistan. The great grandmother is flying down from England, and everything is set. And they come to counseling just for mere formality, right? And they're not prepared to say, hey, there are some red flags that are waving right here. I think you need to kind of reconsider. And so I tend not to see persons who come to me with a fixed date, right? And are getting married next week and want to have counseling the Friday before next week. I tend not to do that. I believe that when persons come to premarital counseling, they should sit at the edge of the seat so as to speak, right? They should not be comfortable because
Agreed.
yes, it should not be like that. And many persons just fly through. They're unprepared. They're ill-prepared. They don't know the other person well enough. They don't know their likes and their dislikes or fundamental differences, value system. All of those things I kind of gloss over because I'm in love and I'm seeing the butterflies, right? There need to be seminars for men, and by and large, the other day we Love and Restoration Ministries, we had a webinar for marriage people. We believe in marriage, and with that, people need to be educated, sensitized, listen to the experiences of others, be willing to learn, be willing to compromise, make amendments. That kind of spirit allows one to grow, right? And these things are important. I think it's just lacking,
Why are we
right?
seeing so many of those things happening for women, but it's like it's not catching on for men? Because for me, that is important. How do we motivate? How do we get our men to move into buying into the concept? Let's go back to the place of buying into the concept of the importance of it. How do we get there? Because if we get there, then I guarantee you change will happen. But how do we get there?
Yes.
That's still a nagging question.
We might have to revisit our methodology as to how we reach them, how we reason with them, and do not make it female oriented. How we probably will reason with a man and say,
May,
well,
may, you, may, you, may you
what
please
happened?
repeat that again, sir? I think I love that. Do not make it female oriented.
Female
Kev, you remember
oriented.
when we
Yeah.
went to down by JTS and we had a conference, and if I'm not mistaken, a young man got up. There were about 300 men there, and he says, "Pastor, do you know why men don't come counseling?" And we said no, and he gave us something that I've never thought of before. He says, because before we even reach counseling, the man already wrong and the woman right, so it don't make no sense we come. Is that really true? How do we change the mindset of our men? Because we notice 80% of our men do not turn up to counseling. What is happening there? And in the concept of staying married, the visual of still, you must forgive me easily. I am not going to forgive you easily. You must understand for men, because I think this is the thing in the head, that this is a norm for man. So if you understand that, woman will do that. So if I do that, you should just say, just pass it over. How do we change? I really think that's the foundation for getting these things. How do we do that?
The approach is important, because even for me as a therapist, and something is going wrong in a couple's marriage, 95% of the time I see the wife. She's the one who comes, she's the one who calls initially, and then she'll say to you that my partner will not come, right? Because one, nothing is wrong with him, right? And counseling is for females, and she needs to fix it. But there are times I call the man and I say, what is happening? And sometimes they will tell me, they'll have the notion that because the female comes first, right? There's a stereotype. So when he comes to counseling, he's going to be bashed, right? The counselor will take the wife's side. And I have to change that narrative, right? And sometimes I don't even call it, say, coming for counseling. I say, come in and just reason. I want to hear from you. Your wife came to you today, and there are two sides to every story. And your side is equally important, right? And when you come, we'll just sit and hold a reason. And when I change that narrative, they do come, right?
Of
But they
course.
already,
Of course.
some of them have, once they come, a side will be chosen already. And so when they come, they are the devil and the devil's uncle, right? You have to change the narrative, and you have to just reason with them to find out what is happening. There are times you just say, all right, I want to talk to you alone. We're not man to man. Let me reason. Let me find out what's going on with you, right? Just man to man. So there are times you just say, all right, just come to me for a session today. Let me just hold a reason. You you made the environment as non-threatening as possible, right? And just hold a reason. Man love to hold reason, right? They love to tell their side of it. They love to feel validated. And so the narrative has to change. The approach has to change. Appeal to logic and rational. That's how men think. And
So
sometimes we
true.
bypass that and we expect to have grand results. Appeal to the man's logic. Whole a
Thank you,
reason.
thank
One to one.
you. Of
Man to
course.
man. Yeah.
Lots of comments here. Marlon Christie says I'm enjoying the conversation and that he's really working to stay committed and faithful to his wife. Sister Daly from the Bronx. Married is hard work. Emphasis on hard work. In Jamaica, that's a work. Um,
Walks.
yes,
Work.
Marlene from Woodburn, St. Thomas. I have never believed in counseling when it came on to marriage because sometimes we both lie in front of the counselor. I am married and I love to test my husband, and he do the same thing to see where we are and what's weak on that. Why I always said we want to have a wedding, but we are not prepared for the marriage. Um, any comment there, Brother Paul?
But I will say to the person that counseling does work. I have seen many marriages repaired
Yes.
as a result of intervention. I've seen it, right? With my own two eyes. It does work, right? And I would encourage persons to give it a try. And of course, it is hard work. It takes work, it takes energy, it takes commitment, but it is worth it. You're building a life together. It is reciprocal too, right? I am working on it. My wife is working on it. And at the end of it, we both converge and say, this is what we have done, right? But I noticed though that some women are weighing on the issue, and I am sorry about how they feel, but obviously some persons are kind of looking at it as they might have had some bitter experiences, and that exists too, right? And it will color how they see marriage, and it happens, it does happen. But I am saying that, once the ingredients are there, once God is at the center, once persons have things in common interest, communication becomes important, heart to heart communication, you know. When I talk to you about something, I'm not going to be judged. It will be used against me on another occasion. I feel safe to open to you. We can start dating each other. When you get married, don't stop dating each other. The love text and those things must come in, sitting down and just cuddling. That's intimacy, bonding. It becomes important. Knowing how to deal with conflicts effectively also becomes important. Not trying to change the other becomes important. Bringing out the best in each other becomes important. It is workable, it is doable, it is hard work, but it pays off.
I like all that you just said, Sir Smith. I was just, I want to segue into it. I was about to say, name 5 qualities, if you can, of what a man must be like so that he remains married, and is understanding and forgiveness. 2 of those qualities, and are others that you can name. If you can list at least 5, so that someone listening can have something that they can tangibly say, this is what I need to remain married.
All right, so you mentioned being a good communicator, and you might
Yes.
not come into the marriage as one, but you can learn to communicate. Know your wife or your partner's love language becomes important, right? Knows what interests your wife becomes important. Buy into it, support her, encourage her. That becomes important. I saw in a prelude, grooming becomes important. Dress up. Be there. The date nights become important. Communication become important. All of those things. Knowing your wife, knowing what works, what doesn't work, knows what gets the best out of her. as I said last week, being her cheerleader, believing in her, not bringing her down, but loving her, becomes important, and not beating down on her faults and comparing her with other relationships that you might have had, all of these things become important. So appreciate, love, take time for each other, not even take time, but make time for each other, right? Make time for each other, have a time when you just sit and you talk and you communicate, give a listening ear, do not condemn, do not judge, just be a listening ear, be a friend. A friend is important, a friend who understand and appreciate what you're saying, where you're coming from, listening actively, attentively. Tell me some more. I have interest in what you have to say. I have interest in how hurting you're feeling. Talk to me. I am here for you, right? That becomes important. Create a safe space where the partner can come and just talk and say, "So I'm feeling," and you're there to restore, to affirm. All of these things become important. I could go on and on and on and on and on.
I
One
know,
last thing from
and
me, Kevin.
we're almost out of time.
So,
Wives say they don't know what husbands need. Sometimes wives say that they don't know, they can't please the man. What is it that husbands really need from their wives? In closing out, Brother Paul.
Respect, honor. He wants to be treated like the king in the palace, the king of his home. Respect becomes important. Affirmation. Men like to be affirmed. Man, you look good to the man. I like your cologne. You understand? Those things become important. The respect, the honor that is given, that appeals to the man, right? He doesn't want to feel less than, right? But more of. That becomes important. It appeals to the ego, it appeals to the mind. So those things are important. So as much as the woman wants a man to understand her, it is important that the woman understands the man. So we try to understand each other and work along that path. It becomes important. But respect is important. Honor is important. Kingship is important. Priesthood is important.
loving those comments. Kevin, indeed, great minds think alike. That's the same thing I was about to ask. A lot of our men believe that things are so woman focused, but you just said it all. It's wonderful. We have been discussing how to remain married faithfully after the wedding, and we have been hearing that marriage takes hard work, understanding from both partners, forgiving each other. Men, we need to put more work into our marriages, and indeed, we agree. Date nights and all them stuff work. So, Kev, we want to
Yeah.
say thanks to our sponsors, Fosrich Company Limited. Thanks to our remarkable producer, Tony K. Bromfield. Let's sneak in one more comment. Very good program. Train young men how to be good fathers and husbands, using other men as trainers and role models. So agree with that statement. Just talk as man to man, make a social setting. Very good program as usual. I believe Mailbox need a boot camp. I love that idea. I love that idea. We need this kind of things in church, especially Couples Sunday. That's good that church have Couples Sunday. First time hearing about it, but that's an
Yeah.
excellent. Yes. So to Tony K. Brownfield, Queen T as we call her, to my butler for technical support, to our listeners and those who join us on social media. Thank you. A big thanks to our guest, Paul Smith. Listeners, catch you again next week for another episode inside the program Designed for Men with Guess Who Are Men, hosted by me, Courtney Morrison, and
Yes, my Kevin Bailey right here on the mailbox. Thanks again, Brother Paul. Great to have you. Have a great week. And man, oh man, have a wonderful
My
time.
pleasure.
Yeah.
next
So
week,
Blessings.
Monday, right? Yeah, so
Monday up. Monday up.
have a great evening.
Blessings.
Which part no walk? We go build the ark, make the heathen them laugh. Talk, no one ever skylark.